Hi, I'm Jonathan.
Hi, I'm Lisimba, and welcome to episode 41 of Ethnically Speaking, the show where we discuss everything affecting the UK's highly melanated communities, from pop culture to current affairs and everything in between. We always keep it 100, and today we're going to be discussing people getting themselves into unnecessary debt. Buy now, pay later firms like Klarna have been told they may face tighter restrictions in light of the unsecured credit that they offer to customers. These companies allow customers to spend hundreds of pounds with retailers like ASOS in order to receive their items immediately while spreading their payments over several months without incurring any fees or interest. The problem is many of these customers miss their payments, and as a result, they find a reduction in their credit score, and they're also chased by debt collection agencies. So, are buy now, pay later firms helping us to get the items that we need now by allowing us to spread the payments over a more manageable period, or are they encouraging people to fall into more debt?
Lisimba, this is such an interesting question, and I would have to say definitely encouraging people to get into debt. I just think Klarna is a massive, it's not a con, but they know who their clientele is. When I heard that one of the major shops that they're at is JD Sports, I'm like, I can't remember the last time JD Sports has appealed to me. When Jonathan and I have walked past our local JD Sports in like our shopping centre when the world was open, all the posters in the window are like Maya Jama, young rappers, young footballers who are appealing to a very specific demographic, and then having Klarna at these places when you know it's teenagers and children who are shopping there, they are definitely trying to encourage people to get into debt. And I don't mean not encouraging people into debt as that's their aim, but they are encouraging people to buy when they know that they might not have the means in order to get out of the hole that they're putting themselves into.
Yeah, I would 100% agree that I think it's really, really dangerous in terms of what Klarna and other companies like that are doing. Like, if you had the money for it, you'd be able to pay for it without Klarna. But I think the attractive thing about it is that when people talk about debt, we generally talk about it in terms of you rack up debt, there's huge interest fees, and there's all this kind of stuff. And then you see something like Klarna and you go, well, it's not like that. There is no interest. Nothing's going to happen to me. I can sort it out. I'm going to get the extra money next month. It's only £30 here. And I think that gets people into a bad cycle.
So I guess I'm kind of in two camps when it comes to Klarna. I do think that what they're doing can be perceived quite negative, especially on the people that aren't very financially literate, I guess. And you know, it can end up being a trap. I can't say any names, but you know, I know somebody close to me that fell into quite a lot of debt, from getting one credit card to another credit card to another credit card, and yeah, we're talking, you know, starting from a few £100s to over 20 grand, you know, in credit. And you know, that person wasn't necessarily financially savvy enough to either A, get themselves out, or B, stop the loop of more debt, you know, and I can see how that's, you know, torn families apart, torn people apart, and you know, it's not a nice cycle to be in. I get that. But the reason why I say I'm in, you know, two camps, if you like, and this might sound a bit harsh at the same time, I think that we are also in a period of time as well where people do have to take on that responsibility in order to get the information that they need to make themselves more financially aware. I think we're in a day and age now where there's YouTube, there's books, there's podcasts, the information is out there. There's credit calculators. Like you actually have to do the research, and I think that we can't bury our head in the sands and almost be like we didn't know. Like the small print is there. Yes, it's small print, but you know, we have to take time and read it. Like I previously worked in the insurance industry. And whether or not you were paid out on a claim was based on the policy wording. Some of these policy wordings, depending on the size of the book, can be like 50 pages, 40 pages. And I guess, yes, I will confess, it's an experience of having worked in that industry. anytime I get a quote, I read that book word for word, every single page, and I recommend anybody else do so. But I think it's just making the conscious decision about what you want to be ignorant to. And what I mean by that is, if you want to be ignorant to financial decisions, as my mom once told me, like, if you don't hear, you must feel, and you know, you're going to learn one day, right? But also as well, I understand for myself, there's certain things about privacy which I haven't, and I'll put my hands up, chosen to be as savvy about. And what I mean by that is, we've all installed the app, scrolled to the bottom and clicked accept. You get to the website, it's asking you about your cookies, you just like, it's loading slow, clicked accept. And I understand that's an area that I'm ignorant about. But with that said, I understand if there's a consequence that happens down the line where someone has my information, or, you know, we've all been there, we're talking on the phone, and then suddenly you get an ad for that product you were just speaking about on your phone. You know, you understand you've been giving away your data, and you've been making decisions about allowing your privacy to be out there, so you can't get upset. You know, so I think that we just have to become a bit more educated around finances, and take that responsibility on board.
I definitely, so I just want to jump in for you. Like, I definitely get what you're saying, Lisimba. I think my thing would be the kind of people who are going to use Klarna are not going to be the kind of people who are going to do all the research and work it out. Because the point is, if you sit down and you do all the research, in the end you go, you know what, this is a trap. I'm going to get screwed. I need to stay away from it. Like, but if it's, I think the like important thing about Klarna and even with like Amazon. So like, I was reading that Amazon introduced the one-click purchasing, just because it means that if you click once, you'll just do it. Like, if you give people too long to think about what they're doing and process, then they normally, ironically, make better decisions. And the better decision probably involves not spending money you don't have. And that's the point. Like, if you're spending on Klarna, really and truly, you probably don't have the money up front anyway. Or if you do, there are multiple different things you want to get. But I think even if you do have the money up front, most people will be like, it's actually better for me just to get rid of this money now, rather than think I've got more money than I actually have.
Yeah, like, I agree with what you're saying, Lisimba. And Jonathan, you're very chatty on the show. Wow, okay.
I'm chatty at home too. So exactly.
You would never think that
it's nice to talk to other people. Lockdown is killing me.
What can I say? So I definitely agree with you, Lisimba, in that what we really need to be doing is creating people who are much more financially minded and can understand that. But I think that's where Klarna has tapped into the market of children. Like, literally, they're saying there are children, you're supposed to be over 18 to use it, but come on, we know younger people are going to be using it. And they said all they need to do is type in like their parents' details or their parents' home address, and then they can get cleared through the soft check for Klarna, the soft credit check. And I think that's the issue. Like, I would probably say, like, Lisimba, were you that financially savvy when you were a 16 or 17-year-old, where your biggest worry, and I'm assuming here, might have been being with your friends, like seeing some nice girls, getting a nice looking girlfriend, maybe getting a car. And I know pure man, when I was younger, would take out telephones with car phone warehouse, would get scooters when scooters were a really big thing on credit, and then they wouldn't make the payments, and it was like a ha, I'm not making the payments, they're trying to track me down. Then 5-10 years later, you're trying to get a credit card or get a mortgage, and then that phone that you defaulted on when you were 16 has come back to bite you. They go for young people because they're not thinking about these long-term decisions. So whereas I think we should be just training people and the children in our families to be much more financially minded, I think going after a loophole of people who aren't really thinking long term, Klarna are just not acting ethically, in my opinion.
So when I was younger, I perhaps wasn't as financially savvy as I am now, and I'm not going to say that I am financially savvy now. I still have a lot to learn. There's a lot that I don't know. So I don't want to feel like I'm singing from the rooftop saying, hey, I know everything. I don't. I'm still learning, right? I remember, I think one of my first credit cards, I went out, I bought some brand new TNs, I bought a brand new bicycle, I went shopping, I was like, yes, like I'm looking fresh today. Because I think when you're younger, you're doing a lot of keep up with the Joneses, right? But with that said, I learned from that. You know, I'm not going to say I don't make bad financial decisions today. I've learned from that, and as a result, I've had to pivot in the kinds of things that I spend my money on. But with that said, it's just like, I understand Klarna's bad, right? I understand the people that it's targeting, and that's all fair. But then it makes me raise the question: it's like, those people that they're targeting, at what point in time do they choose to take financial responsibility, or what is the motivating factor? Unless it's a bill, I don't understand what is now going to motivate them to kind of say, okay, cool, what are my options?
I get that, but almost as a kind of example, I would say you shouldn't have to go to prison to find out that crime is bad. Like, it shouldn't work like that. Like you shouldn't always have to experience the consequences, or you shouldn't have to like suffer from the effects of drugs to discover that they destroy your life. Like, there are ways that I think as a society we have to be responsible for each other. So what I would say, one of my biggest issues with Klarna, if you're going to have a system like Klarna, you shouldn't be able to use a credit card to pay for it. Like, I think that should be because it's already credit. Like, however they want to say, like, you should have to put your debit card in, and you should have to have because that will teach people very quickly. But the problem, I think, with credit systems is that it's always about kicking the can down the road. And the more ways you can find to kick it down the road, the more issues you get into. So I guess one thing I've learned, not even in getting married, but just in living and being responsible for things, I can have this much money, and then something comes up which I wasn't expecting. If I've kind of budgeted that money already to pay for my stuff on Klarna, then all of a sudden something goes on my car, or I get into an accident, and now I've got to pay for that. That's where it really gets you. And I think the problem for me with things like Klarna is that they actually want you to get into debt. They want you to spend more money than you have, and that shouldn't be something that anyone should be encouraging.
But I wonder, looking at this from like a different perspective, because when Jonathan and I got married, we bought our bed and the sofa bed like additional, and we decided, they gave us a credit option, and we're like, do you know what? We don't want to spend a couple of $1,000 up front. We'd rather keep that in the bank and make the payments every month for like the next 9 months, because we're in stable jobs. Like, the payments were small and we paid a lot of money up front to make sure it wasn't a financial strain. But just seeing all of those thousands go out the bank, we were like, we don't really want to make that decision right now. Is that different to Klarna? Because is that any different by saying, actually, we bought now and we're going to pay a bit month by month later? Are we just being a bit too hard, where it is a way that I guess responsible adults, you think, do kind of pay for things? Or are we seeing a difference between Klarna and maybe, buying your car on credit?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go Lisimba. I talk last. I don't want to take it.
I think it. I think it comes down to, again, I think, sorry if I'm reverting back to education again, but I think that, when I hear what you're saying at the minute, it makes me think about cash flow, right? I remember many years ago when I wanted to bring out my own magazine, and I understand like the payment process is that like I'd print the magazine, and by the time I sell the magazine, I'm not going to receive the money that I need to from the sales of the magazine in time to print the next batch, because of like, there's a delay in receiving those payments. And then that's when I first learned about like cash flows and stuff, right? So with what you're saying, it makes me think of like, oh, okay, cash flow. Like, I just moved into a new house. I want to get this bed. I want to get, do X, Y, and Z, but I've only got X amount of money. Do I divert those pounds into this now, or do I wait and do it to that? And it just comes about to do with a bit of money management, right? But also as well, I kind of think that it is painted in two different lights because of, similar to what you said earlier, Jonathan, about the type of customers that Klarna is approaching, the people that aren't potentially that financially savvy to be thinking about that kind of money management. I remember when I had, speaking of what you said about those unexpected bills, I remember, and I would not recommend this to anybody else, but somebody once said to me when I used to get annoyed about these unexpected bills, just make more money. you know, and that's the truth of it. The more money you make, like, you don't have to worry about any cash flow issues. But I don't think everybody's in that fortunate position where they can really control their income.
Yeah, I get that, but so I would say it's different though. So like the first job I ever had, I worked at like Sports Direct, which was a rough place to work. But I worked there for like a couple years. But I remember before I started, it was like the day after I finished my GCSEs, one of my friends called me up and said, look, Sports Direct haven't got some jobs going. I needed some cash. And at that point, I was like, you know what? £100 a month would be great. I could do so much with that. So I get the job, get my first paycheck for £100 a month. And I'm like, £100 a month is good, but 200 would be better. And then a couple of months down the line, I'm talking like 600-700 would be great, because like your tastes change. So even on your point of making more money, it just means you get a more expensive car or a bigger house. And so I think like the big things about like money is you have to learn to be disciplined. And I think something like Klarna goes against discipline. To like Sophie's point, I would say the difference between these things and Klarna is like your bed generally is going to cost you a couple of £100 at least. Or sometimes, depending on what kind of bed you're getting, a couple of grand. A car will cost you more than a couple of grand. You're buying clothes generally for a lot less money. I think with those kind of big purchases, and this is the weird thing about credit, it's probably good to buy it with a credit card because you get protection if stuff goes wrong. But I don't think it's like, we shouldn't have to be in a position where we're buying the clothes we wear on credit. That doesn't make sense.
Well, I guess generally in terms of the way Klarna's set up, I definitely agree with that, because even the slogans that they're using just made me really angry. Like, you know, JD Sports, they say, if you can't wait till payday, get it now. I'm like, but what's the problem with waiting till payday? Like, why are we trying to get people to buy it now when they don't have the funds, and saying it's okay because in 2 or 3 weeks you are, and then that will make up for it? Because I remember the first time I saw Klarna, I was buying something on ASOS, and let's say it was around £50. When I saw you can pay over 3 months and then you would only be paying like 13 or 17 pounds or whatever it is divided by 3, my maths is shocking. I thought to myself, ooh, like I could get 3 times the amount of stuff, because I'm already willing to spend 50. I could really spend £150 worth of clothes and then split the money over 3 months. And then that way I get 3 times as much. And as soon as I thought the thought, I was like, Sophie, never do that, because that is how they're going to get you. Because when you're paying that £50 next month, you're going to see something else. And then it's going to be a never ending cycle of you ending in this credit for clothes. And I think the saddest thing for me is that Klarna has taken off during the pandemic on these retail sites when people aren't going anywhere, because there's influencers who are saying, you're feeling down today, why don't you shop? And you can do it with Klarna. Like, I think it's just the way that we're shifting society with this new form of credit, which is basically about consumerism and putting more money into big businesses.
Yeah, and No, I'll jump in here, listen, but then.
I'm sorry, guys. He is so chatty.
Like, you know how long I've been watching this show and waiting to share my, like, I spend most of my days just shouting at the screen. Going, no, I disagree. So it's just great to be here. Yeah. But what I was going to say, I think you can tell what Klarna's about, because the point with Klarna is that they don't actually charge the customer for the transaction. Like, their MO basically is to the company, we're going to charge you, but we guarantee we'll increase people's spends by around 35%. And that's the point. If your spend is increased by about 35%, it's money you didn't have and money you don't have, but money which is still being spent. So rather than, I guess, Sophie spending her £50 and committing herself to £50 this month, she'd have ended up committing herself to £50 this month, £50 that month, £50 the month after. And that's without seeing anything for the next 2 months. If you see anything, it's going to be even more. And I think that's where it becomes an issue for me.
So I guess let me ask you both a question. If you both had a retail brand, would you make Klarna available as a purchasing option?
Do you know what, listen, but that's a very good question, because that's something I thought when I was kind of doing the research on this question, because I don't think that companies like ASOS is a brand close to my heart, honestly. Like, it has so much stuff in there. I love ordering from ASOS, and they're just thinking about increasing their bottom line. And I think I had to think, if it was me, I think it's very difficult, it seems, to be able to keep a moral or an ethical point of view or stance when you're getting into this big business and people are literally throwing money at you. If Klarna says we can increase your sales by 30%, most people are going to go for that, because at the end of the day, ASOS does great brands, but the point is they want to make money. So I would want to keep my moral ground and just say no.
So on that, I think for me, this may go against everything I've just said, I would actually say yes. But if I'm doing a deal with Klarna, I would do a deal with Klarna which says, like, I only want you to allow people to use debit cards. Like, I don't want people to be allowed to use credit cards on my site. If they can't do that, it's a no. Because I think it kind of comes back to what Lisimba is saying about financial responsibility. If it's signed up to like debit cards, people are going to learn that financial responsibility faster because you're going to start defaulting quicker. And that will help, because I think you like can't take away people's free choice. I don't think it's a good thing, but if it could just be done with debit cards, okay. If people want to do it, it's their choice. But if it had to be with credit cards, no. Like, I just think that's irresponsible of me as well.
I just feel like you feel like you're being magnanimous by trying to say people can pay by debit cards.
No, I'm not trying to be magnanimous. I'm just trying to say, like,
you're trying to make a buck in our company, in our retail company.
Well, like, if when people, because here's the thing, and I guess that's what we've not talked about. There are people who use Klarna who are financially sensible, who use it very successfully. And there will always be the same thing with credit cards and that kind of stuff. The problem isn't those who are financially sensible, it's everybody else who gets caught out. Because really and truly, Klarna isn't for people who are financially sensible. It doesn't really help them. Like, it doesn't really help Klarna. It doesn't really help them. Like, you are going to spend what you want to spend anyway. It's for people who probably haven't thought it through as much, who are a little, in that sense, more naive with their money. And get like, as an example, okay, I guess it gives an example very, very quickly. Like, but I remember having a conversation with someone who had just gone to uni, and they got like an overdraft. They had an overdraft of like £1,000, and it came to the end of the first semester. Their overdraft was at the £1,000, and I was talking to them, and they were like, "Oh, but I just thought the bank just fill it up again." And like, it's those kind of people who are going to get in trouble, because all of a sudden you're £1,000 in debt, thinking that the bank are just going to fill it up again.
Yeah, I can I can see how that could be a bit troublesome if you spending thinking that it's just going to get topped up. Look, I agree that we're targeting people that Klarna is targeting people that aren't necessarily financial savvy, and I might say something that might be perceived a bit controversial. If I had a retailer. If it was a retailer that was targeting everybody, I would potentially make Klarna available, but I may want to, direct them into where they can get a bit more information. Just be as transparent as possible about what they're about to get themselves into. If it was a product that targeted our highly melanated community, personally, I wouldn't have Klarna. And it might sound controversial, but the reason why I wouldn't do it is just that I already feel that, we're already coming from a position potentially 2 steps backwards, and anything that affects people from a community that are, I guess, the lower common denominator, if you like. I just wouldn't want to be perpetuating any loss of wealth from a community in that way.
I think it's really interesting that you say that, Lisimba. The second part, I'm with you, my brother. The first part, in terms of the site, giving people information about better ways to spend their money, I find that really interesting because there's actually Klarna Sense, which I saw in a BBC article where they say, we have Klarna Sense where we give people information about how to spend money and not to impulse buy and this and that. And I thought that was utter foolishness, in my opinion, because I remember one time, Jonathan, I don't even know how you found this out, but he was showing me this website of this bullet manufacturer in the UK, and they are one of the biggest manufacturers of what do they call it?
BAE systems.
Well, I was ammunition. ammunition. I was looking.
or like weapons.
Yeah, of weapons and ammunition. And they're saying from their website, you can't tell what it is that they sell. You would have to be in the know. But what they do have on their website is all the charity stuff that they do and all the ways that they're helping disenfranchised communities and all these good things that they are doing and putting money back into the world. And I feel like that's what Klarna Sense is doing. It's like, you know, on one hand, what you're doing isn't helping. You know, it's a detriment to a lot of people. You know that this way that you're roping people in with a soft credit check, but then you're sending bailiffs out when they default, isn't actually helpful. But you're now trying to say, look at the way that we're good for people. Look at the way we're good for the environment. We're a good company. See, like, trust us. And I think it's just another way that they try to rope people in. So it just made me feel, if we have children, if we're blessed with children, 100% we need to teach them how to handle money, because that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. People who don't know how to manage money, who are getting caught up with this buy now and not thinking about the pay later.
So, like, yeah, in terms of not handling money, like, I like have kind of a story. So I really love food, like, love food so much. So I remember I got like £100 for like my birthday when I was like 10 or 8 or something. And I was like, oh, I'm going to buy food. So I did buy food. And then like, maybe a couple of weeks later, I went to get some money because there was something else I wanted, which wasn't food. Like £40 was gone that I just spent on food. And so like, I had to learn about being financially savvy and where money goes and actually placing your money in things which actually benefit you. I'm going to say publicly, I'm not with you guys on if it's only going to affect the highly melanated. That I wouldn't like. I think we just need to be down for all poor people, because it's really poor people who they're going for.
I think so. I think the reason why I'd say that, maybe I sound like a broken record by repeating it or rephrasing it, or I want to see if I can try and add something to it, is I just kind of feel that we don't necessarily get the best shout. We don't necessarily get the best options, you know. And I think some things that were a bit more positive benefits for our community, I think are preferable. And when I say things like that, it may mean things like, and this may be out the realms of our discussion, tax breaks for highly melanated community, things like that, only because of where we're coming from, and I guess what we've had to go through. I don't want to play the slavery card, but it is real, like we there's certain reparations we didn't receive, and as a result of that we're a few steps back. I'm not necessarily saying that other communities, poorer people, should be penalized. I'm just saying that I'm just thinking how potentially things could maybe be evened out.
No, I definitely get that. I think my only thing is, like, with that kind of thing, I think you're right. There are reparations, but we, I guess, need to stick up for people who aren't like us, so that when we ask for stuff, they'll stick up for us too. I think that's the important thing, because like what normally happens is if you're just asking for it, everyone's like, well, why should you get it? I'm suffering too. And so I think it's recognizing that a company like Klarna, to be perfectly honest, don't care whether you're highly melanated or not. It's just whether you're willing to click on Klarna and spend that extra 35%.
Yeah, and I would probably just add, because I know we're talking a lot about money, and Lisimba, I think, briefly touched on it, but if you are in debt, you can reach out. It is not the end. There is hope, even though it can feel like really constraining. You can reach out to Citizens Advice, go fund yourself, the National Debt Line, who, if you have used these services and you are spending more than you want to, reach out, get help. Step change. There is a lot of help that you can get.
Well, I guess that wraps up another episode of Ethnically Speaking. I want to thank everybody for watching today. Let's keep the conversation going. Have you used a buy now, pay later service like Klarna? And do you think they should be a lot more regulated? Let us know in the comments below. If you want even more from us, you can subscribe to our email list, and there's also a special segment just exclusive for our email subscribers called Extra Ethnic, so be sure to check that out. For a summary of everything that was spoken about today, head over to our website, which is unitedmelangroup.com/ES041. There's a link for that in the description below as well. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. We'll be back on Wednesday. We'll be discussing whether marriage is the only milestone that women should celebrate. I want to thank everybody for watching. Stay home and stay safe.